As you are going through the modules for our educational psychology course, you will often find a prompt to respond to one of the field response journal questions. So here's one right here. First of all, we notice the check mark icon, which tells us there's an assignment we need to submit, and then it goes through and tells us what we could complete. Now for the field response journal, I'm going to require you to answer questions 1, 2, 3, and 4. And then you can choose 4 of questions 5 through 12. We'll go back to that in a minute. So on this one you can see I'm saying that you can respond to question 5 and or 6. These ones are optional, so you can choose to respond to one of them, both of them, or neither of them at this point. It just kind of depends on what you're seeing in your classes. So in the module I'll give you a quick introduction to what you would write on for this question. But really, I want to show you at this point how to go about responding to a field response journal question, because this is a key assignment and I wanted to help you get it right. So let's go ahead and read through this first question here. Question 5. Describe how the teacher incorporates multiple intelligences in his or her instruction. Give specific examples of how these intelligences are utilized, and be sure to cite the text in your response. So there are a couple of things that I want you to notice here. First of all, I'm asking about the teacher's behaviors, and that's going to be true in most of the field response journal questions. How is the teacher incorporating the theory that we're learning about? Secondly, I want you to give specific examples. So don't just say, oh yes, the teacher was using multiple intelligences. Say, the teacher was using the linguistic intelligence when he or she did, and then tell me a story. Okay? Third, I want you to notice this last part. Be sure to cite the text in your response. You can't just give opinion in these. I really need you to show me, basically, a short scholarly response. Reference the text, bring in quotes or ideas, page numbers, etc., to help me see that you really understand the content and are able to utilize the text effectively. The fourth thing that I want to see in these responses, which is not demonstrated here in the question, is vocabulary. I really want you to bring in those key terms from our study guides and from the modules in the text. Okay, so that's 4 things I'm looking for. How is the teacher utilizing the theory? Give me specific examples, cite the text, and use your vocab. Your response should be about a half page to a full page, single-spaced, okay? Single-spaced, why? Because I'm from Oregon and I don't want to waste paper. Well, we're not printing these, but that's okay. Secondly, just thinking about my own learning, I have a difficult time reading double-spaced text for some reason. There's too much white space and I get distracted. So we're going to stick with single-spaced text here, okay? So how do I go about actually responding to this question? Well, the first thing I'm going to do is copy and paste the text of the question into a nice fresh Word document. Let me find one here. There we go. Now it's a really good idea to just go ahead and start a document for your full field response journal. Proper capitalization is good. And then we can use this to answer all of your questions that you choose to respond to. So what I'm going to do is paste in that question so that I, as the teacher, know what question you're responding to. I don't have to guess what you're trying to answer, okay? All right, now I've got to remember I need to give examples of how the teacher was using it. Those examples need to be specific. I need to reference the text, and I need to use vocab. So a really good place to start then would be the textbook. So I'm going to pop back over here to my digital copy of the textbook, and oh look, magically I happen to have multiple intelligence theory up. So I go through here and I notice, okay, Gardner had 8 multiple intelligences that he referenced that are different ways that people can learn. So maybe I'll start my response with that. Let me pop back over to my Word document, and I'd say something like this. According to our text, Howard Gardner believes that there are 8 different multiple intelligences that students can utilize when learning information. You could, if you wanted to at this point, then go through and list what those intelligences are, or you could say something like this. Well, let me give a reference first. Page 142, there. All right. In Dr. Cox's classroom, I noticed her using 3 of those intelligences during her lesson on mammals. She taught the students a song that contained the unique attributes of mammals. And then I might say, okay, that's musical intelligence. So I'm using my vocab and I'm being really specific about which example goes with which concept, right? She also had students discuss the attributes of mammals and write down those attributes on a guided note-taking form. So that would be what? Linguistic intelligence. Finally, Dr. Cox had her students come up with a physical mnemonic for the attributes of mammals. The mnemonic had to use the body to represent different attributes. Okay, so this would be kinesthetic. All right, so there I've got a reference to the text, I've got a specific example, and I've got some vocabulary scattered through there. A couple things to notice here. Notice that I've used more than one intelligence here. I want to get some decent coverage of the theory, okay? So don't just use one term from the theory and think you're good. Really try to get some broad coverage of the theory within your response, okay? Show me that you know the theory. Now, I also want to see some good, strong analysis here. In some cases, you'll need to explain your concepts. So here it's pretty obvious that when we're having the students sing a song, then that's connecting to musical intelligence. But in other theories, you may need to explain why the example you give represents that concept. You may need to give me a little bit more detail. So just watch out for that a little bit, okay? Now, there's some other aspects of Howard Gardner's theory that are mentioned in our text. If we turn the page of the book here, at the top of the page, we'll see this information about the entry points. Okay? So rather than focusing on those 8 separate multiple intelligences, some people believe we should focus on these 6 entry points that we might use within a classroom. Okay? So giving rich stories would be an example of the narrative entry point. Examining or analyzing things would be an example of the logical quantitative entry point, etc. So, as you can see, this lesson that I was giving on mammals seems to be focused largely on the experiential. We were having the kids sing songs and do activities and things like that. So it was very much about the experience of learning. So I might go back now to my written response and say, Dr. Cox's use of these intelligences represents the experiential entry point, page 143. In that, see, now here's that explanation. Why? She was emphasizing students' experience of the content rather than analysis or lecture, something to that effect. Okay? So this isn't an extraordinarily long response, notice. It's actually, this one right now is just shy of a half of a page. You might want to flesh it out a little bit more, but I simply wanted to illustrate for you the different attributes I'm looking for. First, the focus on the teacher, how they're using the theory. Second, the specific examples from the classroom. Third, the reference to the text. And fourth, the vocabulary from the theory. So you should see all of those here within this response. Okay? Now, how do we go about actually submitting this? Well, first of all, let's make sure we're saving this document as we go. Okay? Field Response Journal. Save it somewhere you'll find it. There we go.